Owls are completely at home in the dark. They have all the features of the diurnal birds of prey, from their sharp talons to their strong beaks, but their eyes are different. In low-light conditions, they are 100 times more sensitive than ours. Still, there are times when even a barn owl's eyes are not sensitive enough for hunting. The film in these canisters was the first photographic evidence that owls could hunt without any light at all. In 1957, Roger Payne of Cornell University carried out an unusual experiment.
I knew that owls had asymmetrical ears. The ears weren't the same on the two sides of the head. And that was curious. It meant ears were important to owls. I had to be doing something with them. So I put an owl on a perch in a darkened room, and I then released a mouse into leaves on the floor of the room. And the mouse, as it moved around, made noise, banging into the leaves and crushing them. And suddenly, in the darkness, the owl struck, and I turned on the lights, and it was holding the mouse. I just couldn't believe it. And later on, I got hold of an infrared viewing device, which makes it possible to look in infrared, which the owl can't see and we can't see. And then I could watch what was going on, and it was just fascinating.
Throughout the winter in a small shed on the campus, he used infrared light to watch barn owls hunt. He recorded what he saw on infrared film.
What we got to remember is that throughout this whole time, the owl can't see a thing. There's enough infrared to expose the film, but the owl can't see in infrared. But here he goes. He's flying along. He brings his feet into a pattern right there, which is exactly lined up with the mouse's body. He then closes his eyes because he knows he's about to hit something. He lands, and he's missed. The mouse is sitting right next to him, not 2 inches from his foot, but he can't see it. So he folds his wings. Ooh, and then he looks at the mouse because the mouse has just made a sound. And now he leans way forward. He's 6 inches from it. And at this moment, he does a curious thing. He brings his feet from the floor all the way up and puts them out like that because it's the only way he can line them up with what he's hearing. Here he goes. Wham, he nails it right there. Make sure that it wasn't that it was homing on the smell of the mouse, or that it had actually seen the mouse somehow, or that maybe it was looking at the mouse in the infrared heat that a mouse gives off. I took a small wad of paper, dragged that through leaves, and the owl struck the paper. The paper doesn't smell, it doesn't have any infrared coming off it, it doesn't look like a mouse to anybody, not even an owl, and the result is it had to be sound. Sound was what they were using.
At first sight, the barn owl doesn't appear to have ears at all, unlike its cousin, the long-eared owl. Looks, however, can be deceiving. The tufts are only for display. Its real ears, like the barn owl's, are hidden under the feathers alongside its eyes.
Everything about the way an owl looks, the reason an owl looks like an owl, is all to do with acoustic adaptations. In other words, adaptations for hearing. One of the most obvious ones is this circle of feathers around both sides of the head. Actually, this is one parabola to collect sound for this ear, and this is another parabola to collect sound for that ear, which is actually very much like cupping your hand behind your ear as a means of collecting more sound. And you can also see another peculiar thing. Owls sit with their bills pointed down like this, looking at the world. And the reason they do is to maximize the surface area over which they can collect sound. If this was a robin or some other bird, songbird, the bill would be held roughly horizontally like that. But no, they tilt it way down. And the reason they do that is because this dimension of the head is greater than that dimension of the head. That whole posture is part of why an owl looks like an owl.
The barn owl locates the direction of a sound in two ways. When the mouse makes a noise, the sound reaches one ear a fraction of a second before it arrives at the other. This minute time difference enables the owl to work out the left-right direction of the mouse. When the mouse is directly in front of the owl, the sound arrives at both ears at exactly the same time. Now it has to calculate if the mouse is above or below.
If you cut just that collection of feathers in the very center here that help the air flow by smoothly, then you get what we've done here to this owl, which is a stuffed owl that's had just those feathers removed, nothing else. So right here you can see that there are two flaps of skin, and those flaps are directly in front of the ear opening. The ear opening is back here. But they're asymmetrically placed. One is higher than the other one. This one is actually lower than that one.
These asymmetric flaps gather the sound from the mouse in different ways. The noise of rustling leaves comes from below the owl. The sound passes under the high flap, which is on the left side of the owl's head, and is reflected by the ruff into the ear. The low flap on the right side deflects the sound coming from below. When the sound is louder in the left than the right ear, the owl knows it's coming from below. By combining the up-down with the left-right information, it pinpoints the mouse with great precision. The mouse, however, has ears of its own. If it hears the owl coming, it can simply run away.
There's a fight between owls and mice. Mice have ways to avoid owls. Owls have ways to improve their chances of catching a mouse, and this is one of them. The very leading edge of the feather that is in the front on the wing has a little series of tiny little spikes that stick out on it.
No other bird of prey has these spikes. The leading edge of an eagle's wing is smooth. As the eagle flies, its wings cut through the air, creating turbulence. This turbulence creates large sound waves, making it noisy in flight. When an owl flies, the tiny spikes on its wings break down the air into smaller spirals called microturbulence. This makes the flight of the owl quieter. Sharp hearing also helps an owl hunting in daylight. The great gray owl lives in northern latitudes, and in the winter months, its prey is hidden beneath a blanket of snow. But the snow offers no real protection. Even through this covering, the owl can detect the sound of a mouse eating. The great gray owl, like all birds of prey, has senses finely adapted to its environment. Turkey vultures ranging over the rainforests of South America can't see their food either. The dense canopy of trees covering the ground hides animal carcasses from view. So how these scavengers were able to locate food remained a mystery until the late 1930s.